Well, thanks, Mike. Let me just say a few words before I turn to your thought or some authority on and elsewhere. But if you look at the rise of China, the question of how we manage the rise of China, by we I mean the world community, is one of the big questions for peace and stability in this century. And there are many areas where we have common interests in China, whether it be trade or monetary stability, climate change, or managing pandemics and so forth. But there's some where we have one has been the issue of the ocean areas off the coast of China. And that's why we spent a fair amount of time in these earlier sessions of the Boston Global Forum thinking about that. The current dispute between Japan and China over the Chinese value islands and Japanese goals and Taku Islands has led to situations that could be quite dangerous. The questions about freedom of navigation in the oceans and areas that China's exclusive economic zone, America flies through. There have been accidents there. In 2001, a plane was forced down. A Chinese pilot was killed. RE-3 was forced down, disassembled. There was an incident recently where the Chinese plane did a barrel roll right in front of an American surveillance plane that could easily have created disaster. Japanese and Chinese ships are coming very close to each other in a game of chicken off the islands. And so there is potential for miscalculation, accident, throwing things off course. And Robert Kaplan has written a book, which is a very good book on this. I think he called it The Most Dangerous Sea or something. Cauldron.
Asia's Cauldron.
Asia's Cauldron, that's right. And so the question is, what can we do to avoid this? Is there anything to be done? There's some good news in the sense that despite the way the photograph came out when Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Abe met in China today, that there is at least the beginning of discussions between China and Japan, which had not been possible before. So we hope to put some progress there. But I would argue that this may run against the conventional wisdom. I would argue that because the U.S. and Japan have dominant military superiority in the East China Sea, I think deterrence is going to work there. When you turn to the South China Sea, I think it's much more problematic because you have many more claimants and you don't have a clear theory of how you deter actions. I was reading a recent paper by Admiral Divitt of the Center for Naval Analysis on the South China Sea. And what he pointed out this night, explained his reasoning on this, is that it would be a huge mistake for the United States to let the South China Sea become a point of principal conflict between the U.S. and China. So we have many interests with China besides the South China Sea. And in addition to that, he said it's not so clear that among the 5 or so countries which are claiming territory in the South China Sea, it's not so clear that the Chinese are almost wrong. And if you get into a situation where you say U.S. versus China, you can actually become polarized, of course. So, for example, in this paper, he says, policy should not be overwhelming in China. He says that in fact, when you look at the basis of the claims, the overlapping claims among the 5 nations, are not clear that China's point is always wrong. And he says the claims that Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, islands, or rocks, the Spratly Islands, are not as strong as the claim that China or Vietnam. So we let this get polarized on the U.S.-China dispute. We may be in a difficult situation. What he recommends is essentially that the United States should base its position on international law as a codes of conduct, as well as a strong naval presence. And that he recommends the Svalbard, sometimes called Spitsbergen Treaty of 1920, as a potential template for creating provisional joint fishing and hydrocarbon protocol. These are interesting ideas, and I guess the point that I want to make is that before we let this escalate into a U.S. versus China point of principle that everything that is done by China is wrong, everything that's done by the other states is right, and that we're the maybe for these complaining against China, we should be very careful not to lock ourselves into that. Because it's not so clear what the legal principles are. The American position so far has been we stand for freedom of navigation and base our position on the UN Law of the Sea Treaty, even though ironically we haven't ratified it, which shows that we haven't gotten around to that yet. But the principle is that free navigation under international law of the sea treaty is our stance. The various rocks and shoals and atolls and islands in the South China Sea that are contested by 5 countries, that we've taken the position that we're not taking a position on sovereignty. But we urge these countries to settle this peacefully, and we favor a code of conduct leading to negotiations. Some will be bilateral, maybe some multilateral. But that we don't want to get locked into a situation where the South China Sea becomes a mini Cold War between the United States and China. And this kind of idea, sticking to the law of the sea treaty, maybe supplementing it with something like the Svalbard Treaty, which Norway shares the resources of this frozen border part is a model of thinking. So that's a way of kicking off the start of how we think about this. But let me turn to Prof, who really knows what he's talking about, because he's written all over it.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great